Hello, I'm Nadine Blaney. Welcome to Media Week. Ahead on the program, the day has finally come for social media platform Snapchat to float on the New York Stock Exchange. And Channel 7 continues to dominate free-to-air ratings with My Kitchen Rules taking out the podium this week. Our co-host James Manning, editor and publisher of Media Week, is here. He'll run us through all those stories and more. But first, after arriving in Australia to run the ARN radio business, Kieran Davis was later promoted to CEO to run parent company APN News and Media. He took over from Michael Miller, who returned to News Corp Australia. With its exit from the newspaper sector, Davis has overseen the transformation of APN News and Media, which is now dominantly a radio and outdoor business with a small portfolio of digital assets. And he joins us now in studio. Welcome back. Good to have you here.
How are you?
Congratulations. The recent half-yearly result was good. I'm curious, though, just before we get into some of the divisions of the business, overall, how is 2017 shaping up?
It's shaping up to be an exciting year for us. After a very transformative year in 2016, where we exited New Zealand by demerging our NZME business, we bought the other half of Adshel from Clear Channel. We bought Conversant Media, as you said, and I think one of the significant things was we sold our publishing business to News Corp in December, which meant that we have now zero publishing exposure, and that's a difficult thing to say, but from our perspective, it means that we can focus our capital on the growth sectors of radio, outdoor, and digital. So I think the challenge for us this year now is to move away from the corporate transactions that we did to actually making sure that APN becomes not just a holder of media assets but an operator of media assets.
Just give us an update of what happened in New Zealand. Now you've floated off the New Zealand business, became NZME. What shareholding does APN have in that?
So we didn't float it, we demerged it.
Sorry, demerged.
So we did a one-for-one demerge, and it meant that shareholders had the opportunity to decide did they want to stay in the New Zealand market or not.
Right.
So we have no retention of a shareholding in NZME at all.
All right, so you really don't have to worry about what happens there now?
Not that we don't have to worry about it, but obviously we were very conscious that we were demerging a very good business with a very good management team. It continues to perform very well, so we're very conscious in demerging it that we set it up for success. One of the issues that is that there's a potential merger discussion with Fairfax going on over there, which is obviously under consideration. So we did a good job handing it over, and it's continuing to perform well.
Yeah. Does it affect you what happens with that decision? I mean, if the Commerce Commission say no, it's just...
In terms of APN, it doesn't have an impact at all. No, we're totally separate at this stage, and as I say, we didn't maintain a shareholding in the business. OK,
and does it surprise you to see Southern Cross Stereo put up their hand that they'd be interested in some of the radio assets over there?
I think we're all looking for assets that are, provide growth opportunities. The radio business is a very good business.
Right.
But as you know, about maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, NZME came together. It brought its publishing, radio and digital arms under one roof with one management team. So I think separation of those assets could prove challenging.
Yeah.
Well, can we talk about the Adshel business? Yeah. Do you see Adshel really driving results through the second half, primarily?
I think Adshel is positioned for a good year of growth.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why we bought out Clear Channel was we were frustrated a little bit. We wanted to accelerate the digital programme to roll out street furniture. We're looking to roll out another 200-odd digital screens this year, which means that by the end of 2017 we'll have over 700 digital screens in Australia and New Zealand. And I think, as with the outdoor sector, digital is driving growth. But we're also quite excited about the technological and data advancements that we can take to Adshel and the opportunities that provides for advertisers.
QMS was the last of the media companies, which are all have some sort of listing involvement at the moment. They're all doing very well. They reported a big profit, as has everyone else. You have spoken out, though, against the proposed merger, I think, of O and APN Outdoor. Why, if everybody's doing so well, there seems to be plenty of money, could that impact on your business, do you think?
Well, I look at it from an advertiser perspective. And I think the number one and number two operator coming together, having 50+% market share, but more importantly 100% ownership of airport, 80% ownership of the billboard market, 80% ownership of the retail market, that is ultimately going to lead to a reduction in advertiser choice. And I think as time goes on, it'll see an increase in prices. So from an advertiser perspective, there could be less choice, higher prices. There needs to be some consolidation, I think, in the outdoor market, but I don't believe the right thing for the sector is the number one and number two coming together.
Yeah, we've seen lots of the smaller players being sort of sucked up, if you like, and merged with the big people. So you think that's sort of okay, but you are worried about that, the impact that the two biggest getting together?
Well, the Competition Authority will look at the level of competition in the market.
Yeah.
And when 1 and 2 get together and have such a dominant force in 4 of the main 5 sectors within the industry, then that is a concern that needs to be looked at. I think if you look beyond that in terms of how landlords would sit, where advertisers sit, you know, the argument that outdoor competes against total market, I'm not so sure about. If you talk to any client or advertising agency, you know, it is broken down by sector in terms of what radio is to do for a communication brief, what outdoor is to do. And I think, you know, we need to look at this from an outdoor sector as opposed to a total market sector.
Tongue-in-cheek, I thought you might be excited about getting rid of the APN, the competing APN name out there in the marketplace, which is confusing for many people. When it comes to the advertising market in 2017, in these first couple of months, how's it been going?
Just on the rebrand,
Yeah.
we are getting rid of the name. We are rebranding APN. We'll roll out a new brand in a few months' time.
I didn't know that.
Well, I think, you know, the market, shareholders, investors, potential investors still believe that APN is a publishing business, and it's not. And I think it's just indicative of the new place that we're going, the new path that we have, the focus on the away-from-home assets that we're looking to rebrand, and we'll roll that out in a couple of months.
So no sneak peek
You
into
can't give
that,
us
Will.
a tip on that?
Not yet. No, sorry.
Will it be gone completely, or will there
Gone
be any
completely.
link to the existing?
No, gone completely. And at the end of the day, you know, APN was, you know, in its heyday, a publishing business. It's not anymore. We are, you know, away-from-home media assets. And I think as we look to sort of consumer technology disrupting media consumption in the home even more, we think there'll be a flow of advertising dollars much more to the away-from-home assets, where APN, Newco APN, is ideally placed with its radio, outdoor and digital. So, you know, it's time to rebrand and refresh the name.
That'll make Richard Herring happy, because he sat here and we asked him about, you know, changing their name, and he said, no, I think they,
Yeah, exactly.
they should change their
That's what I
name.
was getting at.
Who has the royalty?
And there you have it.
Can we talk about radio then? You know, were you disappointed, I guess, or how challenging is the radio market at this time?
The radio market is incredibly competitive, and that is good for radio. I think, you know, when we talked about our full year results, we showed a graph where overall numbers to radio listenership is going up. You know, the Deloitte's market is continuing to rise, so money is still being spent in radio. And that's because all radio networks spend on talent, spend on marketing, spend on content, spend on multi-platform content distribution. And that provides great engagement for listeners, and it provides great opportunities for advertisers. I think, you know, everybody will say the market is short. It is short, and it is getting shorter, but I think that's the world we live in, all of us today.
It's interesting in radio that you can either build your business on personalities or the brand, sometimes a bit of both. You've done both, I guess. You could maybe argue your Kiss is done best because of Kyle and Jackie O, but whereas maybe, is it your Pure Gold you call it now, has done very well building the brand. Perhaps Nova and Smooth have also done a good job building their brands. We saw what happened to Southern Cross Austereo when they lost some of their key talent. Are you sort of prepared with fallback positions if you do lose key talent?
Yeah, I think...
Given it's a dominant part of your business.
Yeah, and we've always said talent is a key part of our business. It's a key reason why people tune into radio. You know, in a world where streaming songs is becoming ever more prevalent, what is between the songs is just, if not more important. People want to know what happened on television last night. They want to know the news, they want to know the traffic, they want it in a bit of fun, particularly on a music network. So talent will always be a key part of our driver for us, whether that's the KISS network or the Pure Gold network. And we're very pleased with the talent that we have across the network in all countries. We continue to refresh it, you know, and we've made changes in Brisbane this year. You know, we're looking at talent all the time. I think the challenge for radio is to make sure that there's new talent coming through. And we're using platforms like iHeartRadio to breed new talent, whereby we can launch 70 new stations last year, and we're bringing on fresh talent to see what the future can bring.
Now, when it comes to, I guess, the rebrand, which really gives a clear indication of the transformative year you had in 2016 and potentially to continue, I mean, are there further acquisitions potentially coming? And if so, where would the most desirable assets be?
Yes, we're always on the lookout for the right acquisition. You know, we did raise 2 capital raises last year, so, you know, shareholders have supported us from that perspective. But we've been very clear in terms of what our strategic objectives are. And we've got 4 pillars. The first one is to grow our audience base. So if an acquisition can do that, we will absolutely look at it. We want to improve our digital and data capabilities. We want to diversify revenues a little bit away from just radio and outdoor. And finally, we want to be able to integrate and optimize integration across any new asset that we bring in. So if it hits those 4 key pillars, then absolutely we're on the lookout.
Is there any acquisition linked to the rebrand?
Not as yet. No, there isn't. We're not looking. We're continuing looking.
But it's
nothing
still a few
specific.
weeks, so you never know, right? Have you got much firepower if you do find an acquisition? Have you got access to capital, or would you need to go?
Well, one of the areas that we're really focusing on, we've earmarked $50 million of capital expenditure to roll out digital assets across AdShell, and we've looked at the next 3 years, and potentially it's $50 million over the next 3 years. So we have a balance sheet now that is positioned to do that. But as I say, if it's the right acquisition, we will look at it. And if that means we need to go back to the market, well, then we've got to convince the market it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and given radio is such a big part of your business now, do you think it's important to diversify that so you're getting, maybe it's not more than half your business?
Yeah, I think, again, we always look at it from an advertiser perspective. What do they want? What's going to win us more revenue and share of revenue? And yes, it's combining radio and outdoor because they are quite complementary, but it's also the adjacencies to that around data, around other areas where we think that it'll fit in very well and provide total solutions to advertisers, because that's where we see the revenue growth coming from.
Yeah, and just tell us a little bit about your digital assets. Now, it's Conversant. Tell us what's attractive there, and is there anything else?
So Conversant Media is it's a great digital publishing business, user-generated content, increasingly moving into the area of video. They launched Roar TV, which has had over nearly 4 million video views in the last 3 months. So it's really focused on user-generated content. And why is it important to us, particularly from a radio perspective? It offers us an enormous opportunity to grow into that under 30 market, particularly from a male perspective, so categories like sport, wagering.
Big on sports, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the Roar is a brand that we think has a great opportunity to grow, not just in Australia, but beyond that. And we're looking at what we can do, to your point about acquisitions, in terms of how do we really accelerate that growth.
All right. Look, we're looking forward to this rebrand. Now we've got the heads up on that one. Hope to have you back around that time. We have to take a short break. Kieran, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
you. Excuse me, that's Kieran Davis. He's the CEO of APN News and Media. We're taking a short break. Back in a moment.
I actually worked underground for several years. I was always going to be an engineer. I'm going to Japan to look at this low emissions technology, which is using our coal.
Australian coal is very high energy, so it improves the efficiencies of the power station and lowers emissions.
40% から 45% まで効率が上がっております。
Globally, there's billions of people who are going to need a lot more power. That's a big challenge that Australian coal can be part of. I'd like to be part of that.
Your loan's been approved.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You can relax. It's all done.
You're all set. Okay, now that that's sorted, how about your super?
You're not getting your hands on my super.
No?
No, I'm with an industry super fund.
One of those?
Yes, one of those.
Banks aren't super, so keep your super in good hands.
Dreaming of a luxurious holiday? With Luxury Escapes, it's possible. We work with the world's best hotels to create incredible holidays at prices we can all afford. When you book with Luxury Escapes, you also get VIP inclusions. First, download the app or go to luxuryescapes.com. Then browse our offers. Purchase online or call one of our experts, available 7 days a week. Discover the world's best holidays today with Luxury Escapes. Looking to sell your home for the best price with less stress? You need the foolproof Smart Seller Guide from Open Agent, Australia's #1 agent comparison site. Discover the key factors you must know before choosing an agent so you can sell for more. Maximise your sale with our expert Smart Seller Guide. Be informed and know the costs involved. Understand if renovating will make or cost you money. Know if you should go to auction or sell privately. And how to choose the best agent. Go to openagent.com.au and download your free Smart Seller Guide. Trust the people that help thousands sell their home stress-free.
We got 60,000 more than we expected. It was great.
No wonder 60,000 Australians visit Open Agent each month to find the right agent to sell their home. To download the free Smart Seller Guide, a must-have to get the best price for your home, go to openagent.com.au.
If your goal is to retire right, AMP can help with expert advice to make the most of the super changes before July 1. Visit amp.com.au/superchanges.
Looking for something different on a Sunday night? Join me for the Parrot Report, where we give you all the news and views you've come to expect and more. Our special forums asking the big questions. This week, what are the think tanks actually thinking? Look forward to seeing you then.
Welcome back. Our co-host, James Manning, editor and publisher of Mediaweek, is here. Before we get to our chat about all the news out there in media land, let's talk new media for a moment, because it's one of the most eagerly awaited tech IPOs in the US since Alibaba went public in 2014. And Snapchat has just sold its first slew of stocks, coming in at $17 per share. This despite losses widening last year as the company faced increased competition from bigger fish in the social media pond. But despite these challenges, the platform is targeting a valuation of around $24 billion, safe to say, on the New York Stock Exchange. All eyes will be watching out for the trademark icon as it begins trading under the ticker symbol SNAP on Thursday. Again, my guest host, James Manning from Mediaweek. Now, I brought this up, James, because whereas we talk about Facebook, and Twitter in regards to content, there are a lot of people out there that say Snapchat, look, just doesn't have any value when it comes to its content. So putting aside the IPO and everything else, I mean, do you see Snapchat as really being a game changer in the new media space at all?
Well, I think it's going to be challenged by people who value it traditionally, the same way that Twitter's, found a hard time from the analysts sort of justifying its share prices. A lot of people get it, but, as far as long term, it's maybe hard to see where it's going to go, Twitter keeps saying, and they've said it recently again this week, that people don't understand what they're doing, So I think Snapchat will face that same thing, but we saw there was a Media Futures survey that came out just late this week, where they were saying, look, the increase in spending, marketers are saying they'll be tipping a lot more money into social media. So, that's good news for Snapchat. So their advertisers can use that as one of their platforms, as long as, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So that will be getting some of that money, which has got to be good news for them.
Down for print and cinema, though, in that very same Futures survey. And actually the growth in ad budgets looks like it's slowing.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Which is a continuation, obviously, of a trend we've talked about.
Sure, yeah, down a little bit year on year with what advertisers think they will be spending, definitely.
Now, we can't talk television this week without mentioning the Oscars. And I don't know if I've become just so cynical, but when it first happened, before I heard the whole explanation, I thought, oh, well, that's one way to get ratings for the Oscars, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's sort of, you would have had to sit there for the whole 4 hours.
Well, that's true.
Before you got that bang. So I think a lot of people might have, because I've heard people say, oh, gee whiz, I watched a lot of it, but I wasn't there for the very end.
No, it wasn't, I don't think, done to bring eyeballs to the screen.
But I have heard theories about, it was done deliberately and all this. It's hard to imagine.
They are pretty good actors if they could have faked all that. Yeah. But obviously, how were the numbers for Oscars? How did it compare to previous years?
Yeah, look, it was pretty much line ball with the numbers of last year. Nine used to delay it and used to sort of run it as a big deal on the Monday night. Now they do it live in the afternoon, which gets the biggest audience.
It was on 10, wasn't it? Or was it 9?
No, 9. Yeah, it's on 9 live in the afternoon, then they put it on 9 gem in the evening.
Right.
So, yeah, about 400,000, a little bit less for the replay in the night. So, you add it all up, it's close to 1 million people, which is a pretty good number for television these days.
Talking about some ratings, I'm curious to know how Fox League, of course, we were speaking with Patrick Delaney last week, and expectations are high for the Fox League. So what were the numbers sort of telling us?
Yeah, look, it kicked off on 8:30 Monday night. They switched it on. Matty Johns did a special show live from Brisbane. It was the #1 program on the Foxtel platform that day, so it started with a real bang. Some of these shows have kicked in this week. We saw on Wednesday night this week the League Life, the program hosted by the 4 women that Patrick also talked about last week, was the most watched show on Fox League yesterday, so that was interesting. They had that show just for Queenslanders. That did pretty well too. Lots of people outside of Queensland also interested in what's happening. So they're pretty good numbers considering the actual first game hasn't started yet. That kicks off on Thursday.
That's
week,
good.
Of course.
Hopefully good for Foxtel overall as well. Now, as far as just sticking in that space, Fox Sports and NEP Australia, so that is basically an outsourced television production company, has signed a new 6-year deal. How significant is What's new in it?
Yeah, look, really interesting. They're going to have what they would call remote OBs. So there's going to be a production hub, let's say in Sydney, and they can remotely control the coverage at up to 6 simultaneous events. So they'll have remote cameras, remote microphones in position. Most of the production people, though, won't be at the ground or sitting in a OB truck outside the ground. They'll be back in one central hub, working it all remotely. And they figure they'll have that up and running by 2018. So you can think of the obvious savings in costs associated with covering those matches.
Yeah, savings in costs. I wonder how many jobs will go off the back of that as well.
Might be good news, but then again, you're going to need a fair few staff to run that remotely, but you've got to think it's probably not going to be the number they would have needed at each of those individual grounds.
Virgin Australia Supercars is coming back. Bigger, better than ever, is that the word?
Yeah, it is. This time last year there wasn't an overall sponsor for the supercars, which they call Australia's third biggest sport in terms of the number of people watching.
Really?
Yeah, after I guess the NRL and the AFL. So it's massive. It kicks off this weekend in Adelaide, the Clipsal 500. They usually do 1 or 2 events overseas. They're also going to Auckland this year. Fox Sports covers, I think, 4 days. You get Thursday through to Sunday. Lots of coverage. And more hours than ever, and international coverage this year has expanded a lot too. So supercars actually have their own media setup. They do a lot of the coverage which Fox Sports covers themselves.
And just sticking in TV land, we've got 5th season of Married at First Sight being commissioned. So obviously it's doing very well.
Yeah, it looks doing fantastic business. That was at the, we mentioned last week, Hugh Marks at the conference call, you know, they were using that as the example, how well it's doing, and they put out a release saying, look, we've asked for it to come back, and I think they'll be trying to squeeze a few more episodes out of it. They're getting 3 a week at the moment. They would love 4, so I won't be surprised at all if they do that. We'll see the effect it's had in the TV ratings when we get to that.
Well, there's a segue for you. If I ever did hear one, James. Let's take a look at the ratings for week 9, and this is for free to air. And bringing them up, we've got still, as we mentioned off the top of the programme, My Kitchen Rules really taking out those top spots. And, of course, we get 7 News on Sunday sneaking in. That was the big one, wasn't it, about the Lynn family murders?
Yeah, well, Sunday night it was, which was on after that. And they promote it during the bulletin. Right. But you look at that and you think MKR's all over Married, but it's not. Those margins between those 2 shows have narrowed a lot. I mean, last year MKR was ahead of the competition by a long way. It's still ahead this year, but those margins of some nights are disappearing altogether. Other nights, they're very narrow.
OK, let's take a look at what's happening when we look at subscription TV. And this is, of course, starting with sport. And there's Rugby League. Yep,
Rugby League, AFL, a bit of Super Rugby up there, 2 in the top 5. We probably won't see that a lot more because once the AFL and the NRL kicks on, those Super Rugby audiences drop a little bit, although the rugby fans still stay strong.
And if we take a look at the non-sport on subscription television...
Yeah, look, Gogglebox doing some fantastic business for Lifestyle. They had a massive night last night. It was this week they showed the 100th episode of that Selling Houses Australia, which started up. And we'll see that feature prominently on this chart next week.
Well, you can throw my name into that hat. And Big Little Lies also getting a lot of attention.
Yeah, great business for the Showcase channel. So one of the HBO properties that are very crucial to the Foxtel offer these days.
Yeah, looks good. Let's talk about some of the other... Well, we've got the Communications Minister out there just in the past couple of days saying that the government is considering overhauling content requirements.
So what? Yeah. I think the thing that the networks are hoping for that they might relax some of the rules on children's content. So there's a requirement now that a certain amount of children's content is produced. I think still got to be shown on the primary channel. Hugh Marks was talking about this last week as well. And he said, look, we've still got to make a lot of this TV that no one's watching. And those numbers for some of that kids' content on the primary channels is very small because there's, you know, back when these laws were first brought in, there weren't multi-channels, there weren't as many specific
specialised for children.
Correct, yeah, things like Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, things like that, where that now gets a lot of the viewing. The ABC has specialised kids channels, of course, so this just seems a bit onerous for the free-to-air broadcasters to have to do all that. So they're looking for some relief there, I think.
OK. When it comes to reporting season, you've mentioned Hugh Marks in the 9 Call, but reporting season seems like last last week's news, but Prime Media, though, was one of the last companies in the space to report. How did things look for the company?
Yeah, look, they had a 7.2% increase, net profit up 7%, so as I said, to 17.4 million. So it was a good result for them. The interesting things they had in the last half of 2016 were the Olympics, of course. They thought that was a good result, given, you know, they got some good revenue out of it, despite the sort of TV market being under a fair bit of pressure. There are affiliation changes both at 10 and 9, where 7 stayed with Prime, so there wasn't any sort of disruption there to the ad sales, which didn't hurt. But they admitted in their outlook that they do face a challenging time this year, and they don't expect the profit to stay as strong.
And I guess this brings us back to our conversation earlier with Kieran Davis, the CEO of APN News and Media. I mean, out-of-door advertising continues to grow, and the revenues continue to roll in as well. Yeah, look, we've seen they've just reported their, they don't muck about the first day of the month. They've released the revenue figures for the previous month. I think year to date they're up about 7%. Month on month, that was to February last year was only 2%, but the year to date, January and February, was a much bigger jump. And again, they pointed out digital still accounting for a lot of that increase. Okay, James, we've run out of time. It's been great. Thank you for coming in. We'll see you next week. James Manning there. He is the editor and publisher of Media Week. We have to take a short break from all of the team here. Thanks for your company.